welcome to Health Monday with Jared and Jacob from Marble City Pharmacy. Gentlemen, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You had that deer in the headlight look. What's the problem this morning? You all right?
I don't know. I'm just so happy about the NCAA tournament. That's all I can think about.
You know, I thought y'all were going out west.
Look, Auburn got extremely lucky. Let's just put it like that. But we'll take it.
Oh, yeah. Jacob, we're talking about something this morning. It's a little bit painful for me to even consider. And I'll just kind of throw it out there to you and let you go with it.
This morning, we are talking about urinary incontinence.
Can you spell that?
No. Can you? Yeah. Urinary incontinence. What is urinary incontinence? That's a fancy term that means loss of bladder control. Not a fun thing to talk about, not a fun thing to think about, but it's real and it's common and it happens to a very large percent of our population as they age. It's common and it's embarrassing. But we're going to talk about it this morning, and if you leave here with nothing else, know that it is not an inevitable consequence of aging, that there are things we can do about it, we can recognize it, we can deal with it. But today, urinary incontinence, loss of bladder control.
All right. Delving deeper into this, what exactly does this mean?
Well, there are basically there's more than 3 types of urinary incontinence, but let's just try to deal with the 3 most common. One would be when you sneeze or cough and you have some leaking of urine, right? This may very well be the most common. The second one would be what they call urge incontinence. And what that means is you don't have to urinate, you don't have to urinate, you don't have to urinate, and then bam, all of a sudden you have to urinate, but you cannot make it to the restroom. It happens just like that, and you go, unfortunately, in your pants. And then the third most common type would be just a constant dribbling. I know some guys that kind of experience that, and the dribbling is just a word that means, well, it means what it sounds like. Just small drops that leak out every once in a while. So those are 3 ways that it kind of manifests, and that's how you know that you have urinary incontinence.
Now, Jacob, is this men and women or men or what?
You know what? That's a great question because it's yes to both, but for often very different reasons. So what causes urinary incontinence differentiates how we go with men and women in this. Well, it can, just think about, where your bladder sits in your body. It can be caused if there are things putting pressure on that bladder. For instance, if a female is pregnant, there's less room in there, pressure on the bladder. If we have major weight issues, there's pressure in there, major weight on the bladder. And there are things that are common to both men and women, age-related issues. As you age, muscles do tend to weaken. There are things that affect only men. For instance, enlarged, swollen prostate issues, prostate cancer, all those things put pressure in that area and misshape the bladder and cause problem there. There are obstructions you can get. There are medications you can take that make you more likely to urinate, which might be good for your heart if you got too much fluid, but it also makes you more likely to have urinary incontinence. There's medicines that are sedatives for other problems that make you less likely to respond to that mental recognition of the need to urinate. There are diseases, unfortunately, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, things like that not necessarily anything wrong with your bladder, but the message from here to here and back and forth, just it doesn't work right. Those things all cause urinary incontinence. One of the most common I failed a minute ago talking about women was history of childbirth. If you're a female who has given birth, no matter how many years ago it was, that can affect the pelvic floor muscles, and they most often have that stress incontinence. And when they sneeze, cough, whatever, here comes some, and that sometimes never goes away for people. So lots of different causes, and very different for men and women, but almost equally common for men and women, just different reasons.
Yeah, Jared, we don't like to think about this, but
no.
How do you know if you have this issue?
Well, you know that you have this issue if you are leaking, as we said earlier, if you have a sudden urge, as we said earlier, if you had this dribbling, if you said earlier. There are some of these things that you can't do anything about. If you are pregnant, right? Or if you've given childbirth and those are causing your urinary incontinence, there's nothing you can do about that. There are certain other things that you can. For example, if you're a man and your issue is a prostate type issue, you need to get that looked at into and treated. If your problem is that you're overweight and that's putting too much pressure on the bladder muscles, then certainly you can lose weight. A couple things we hadn't talked about that can contribute to urinary incontinence are alcohol and caffeine. So those are a couple of things that you could try to eliminate or at least reduce sharply into out of your diet, I mean. And so there are some things you can do to prevent and control it yourself. Some things you can't.
You know, Jacob, I see commercials all the time. You see it in print, you see it on television, you hear about it in radio, about diapers. You know, and I guess that is a part of what we're talking about this morning too.
Yeah, there are, let's call it non-medicated ways to deal with this problem. There are diapers and pads for men and women out there to help disguise the problem. They don't stop the problem. They just prevent some of the embarrassment and complications of it. There are, you know, that's one end of the spectrum. Hey, let's just slap on a pad or a diaper. You know, other way far into the spectrum, there's surgeries. You know, we've talked about this. There are people who have to have surgeries, both men and women of different types, to help strengthen or shore up that area of the
But there
body.
are medications available, right?
Oh yeah. I'll let Jared get that in a minute. But there's one more very important non-medicated thing, probably the most common and most important thing. I want everybody to hear this because, you know, look, I sell pills for a living, but I don't push pills on anybody. There are things we can do a lot of times way before we ever get to pills. Pelvic floor exercises. Now, you know, that's not a term we throw out every day. It's not a term that most
Can
people
you
are familiar with. Can you
demonstrate?
say, yeah, you know, get on the floor and do
Let's
it.
adjust the cameras.
Yeah, just so you know, you don't have to get on the floor to do pelvic floor exercises. I'm not, for any number of reasons, not going to get into detail today as to what a pelvic floor exercise is. But know that they're simple. You can do them. I could be doing them right now and you wouldn't know it. I'm not. Make you feel better. I'm not. And your doctor can, you can, in the privacy of the office, show you what a pelvic floor exercise is. And you can do these while you're sitting there watching TV. You can do it while you're sitting there cooking. You can do it while you're sitting here on a TV show. You can do them anytime to help strengthen that area before you ever have to get to pills and surgeries and everything else, just to help prevent some of these problems. But as you say, and we'll get to this second, there are medicines as well.
Hand off to you on the meds.
Okay, so there are probably more than 3 types of medications, but just for simplicity's sake, to try to break this down, right? There are a number of medications that are designed to strengthen the muscles in the bladder and or take the pressure off the bladder. In guys, there are medications that are designed to shrink the prostate, take the pressure off the bladder by shrinking the prostate. In females, and I can't remember if we talked about this or not, but in females, sometimes you have a problem with estrogen. And after menopause, a female who is no longer making estrogen has an issue with urinary incontinence. So sometimes our estrogen replacement therapy, even topical, not necessarily oral or hormone replacement therapy, can help treat it. So yeah, a number of different medications out there that do one of those 3 things.
And certainly, Jacob, we don't want people that has this issue to be disheartened or embarrassed, but it can cause mental, emotional issues for someone that's dealing with this.
You know, when you put it into context and just, you know, you stop for a minute, it's not something we think about all the time. You stop for a minute and think about it. Let's say you're a guy, you're in your 50s, you get out and go to church every week, you get out and go, you know, to work every day, you get out, you know, once, twice on the weekend with friends or family or whatever. You have a very normal, happy life. Then all of a sudden, this problem strikes, and you don't want to leave the house. And so you don't. And now you're that person who's shut in the house and never leaves. And if we didn't learn anything from a pandemic, that's not good for people. People need people. And so now you have a psychological issue, you have a social issue. It has taken your life, which was what we're going to call normal, perfect, nice, you know, white picket fence life, you've gone to nothing. And it's all from this. And so, yeah, while it doesn't sound, you know, we've talked on things on the show that are much more serious, cancers and various things like that. I mean, This is a lifestyle affecting issue. It's common. It's simple to get, but it's also simple to treat and deal with. We just need to deal with it so that we don't get in that bad spot.
Yeah. 30 seconds, what's the first thing we need to do?
Some things we don't mind talking about, right? You got high blood pressure, you tell all your friends. You got urinary incontinence, you don't necessarily start talking about that. But it is common, it is treatable. Don't be disheartened and don't be afraid to talk to your doctor about it because they can help you.
All right, appreciate you guys coming in this morning. And if you would like more information, if you'd like a consultation, these guys would be happy to talk with you in the privacy of the store there. And we want to help out as much as we possibly can. Thank you guys for coming in. And
Okay.
War Eagle to you.
War Eagle.
Yeah, y'all got tickets to the
You
game?
better believe it.
The Iowa Hawkeyes.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, we'll mostly be at work during these
I
times. right?
understand. I understand. That'll wrap it up for us here on Daybreak Live. Hey, welcome to